211, and we're going to be talking about what it means by culture and how it affects the peace positively or negatively of a nation. With this being said, let's go straight into it. Now we have PCR211. Okay, PCR211 is the code. Okay, now we have 211, and we're talking about what it means by culture. We are taking our bearing from what it means by culture. Now, when we say culture, what are we referring to? Culture is said to be a means of identification of a particular group or set of people. Okay? Now, a people's culture includes their belief, all right, rules of behavior, their language, rituals, and technology. All right. Speaking of their way of life, the way they eat, their kind of food, their dress style, the way they communicate, all this is encapsulated, is encoded, embedded in their culture. Okay. So we have that as that. Now, when we say culture, an anthropologist, okay, an anthropologist once used a term to refer to what we are referring to as culture. Now, when we say who is an anthropologist, all right, an anthropologist is the individual that studies humanity, all right, in relation to their behavior. That is who an anthropologist is. So now, an anthropologist gave a definition. Now, hear what the anthropologist says. The anthropologists use the term culture to refer to a society. Okay? The anthropologists use the word culture to refer to a society. Now, this society is also or could be also referred to as a group in which many or all live, think, and behave in the same manner. Okay? Now, based on what we have said about what culture is, I believe by now you understand that culture encapsulates the what includes the belief, okay? It includes the beliefs, rules of behavior, all right, language, art, technology, all right, art, technology, etc. All right, so we are also taking the view. Good evening, Ms. Chinaza. It's great to have you on board. We have also taken the view of what the anthropologist said about culture. Now, likewise, any group of people that share common rule or behavior constitutes a society. Okay, now that we know what the culture is, any group of people, all right, that share common rules of behavior constitutes what we refer to as a society. Okay, now culture is said to be an interactive process, and each culture trait or what we call constellation of traits act and react upon each other. All right, when you say something is a culture, or when you say this is the culture of this group of people, this society, one thing you need to understand is that these individuals live together, they interact, all right, their way of life interwoven. Okay, now forming this new combination and what we refer to as a permutation from time to time. Definitely, for you to refer to as a culture, and say, this set of people, this is the way they behave. All right, you've observed certain things about the way they react, their fashion, their behavior, and say, okay, this is who these people are based on how they are, based on their culture. So we have that as that. Now that we understand fully well what it means by culture, let's consider what it means by the culture of aggression. All right, what does it mean? Now, please note something in this class. we'll be very limited to how much of words we can use on this stream, right? Because there are strict policies based on the kind of words we are permitted to use on live streams. So please know that there will be a lot of mincing of words in as much as not to violate rules, all right, rules guiding this medium. So now we want to talk about how culture encourages or discourages aggression. Now, one thing you need to understand here is that we've established this quite all right from the onset that violence is conflict is natural. All right, when you have people, there will always be conflict. All right, but the way conflict is being handled is what will determine if it's going to be destructive or constructive. Now, let's take a step further. Now, violence embedded in most of the world society causes many to consider it an inherent part of human nature. All right, just like we are being told here, violence are considered over time as inherent part of human nature. But is this really true? All right. Violence embedded in most of the world's society. All right. Don't forget we talked about what the society is. Now, speaking of this society, speaking of these people that have a lot in common, their way of life and everything, why is there still violence? Why is there still misunderstanding? Why is there still dispute? Some persons have done their research and concluded that violence is inherent, all right? It's an inherent part of human nature. Now, but there are those who have disagreed with this notion and argued instead that violence is a phenomenon, all right, that emerged in the last 5 to 10 years, all right, and inherent, okay, part of human nature. So we have not an inherent part of human nature. Now, one thing we need to understand here, just like I said, just like I made mention of, okay, that some persons has observed for over long period of time where human beings keep having issues, conflicts between each other. All right. Some persons have now come to the conclusion that violence is, all right, violence can be referred to as an inherent part, meaning that it is natural with humans. And some still argue that they are not of that opinion, as they see violence as a phenomenon, but not an inherent part of human behavior. Okay. So now we have that as that. So now, according to what we have here, some believe that it is a phenomenon emerged in the last 5 to 10,000 years. Okay, that is some of the belief of some persons that it emerged like 5,000, like 5 to 10,000 years. That it is not a part of human, all right, nature. So, just a moment. Now it says here that according to what Max Weber, all right, said about the state, all right, considering what we have here, according to what Max Weber said, okay, about a state, it says that Max Weber defined a state, all right, a state can still be referred to as a society. So now, as according to what Max Weber said, he said a state is based on its monopoly of the right of use of violence. All right, Max Weber is of the opinion that Max Weber okay, is of the opinion that the state is based on monopoly Okay, monopoly. A state is based on its monopoly of the right of use of violence. The right of use of violence. Now, what is Max Weber saying here? Max Weber here is of the opinion that the state has the full right, all right, to use violence to attend to certain matters. That is what Max Weber is referring to here. Now, his definition of the state as the human organization that has monopoly on the legitimate use of physical force within a given territory. That is Max Weber's opinion, that the state has the right to use legitimate force within a given territory. All right. And he gave the definition in the year 1912. Now, the one thing we need to understand here, all right, that some have said that nature has its place for violence. And just like what Max Weber has also said, I'll trace this back to history and see how human as a whole keep involving in conflicts back and forth. We know of the Cold War, all right, where we have a lot of things happening, all right, and the thing is that in as much as conflict is out there, in as much as violence takes place every here and then, every now and then, the most important thing, all right, the good thing is that humans still comes together to see how to collectively put an end to violence and look forward, all right, and put effort together to ensure that there is no more violence. Okay, so we have that as that. So now let's take this abbreviation. It says SALT. That is the Strategic Arms Limitation Talks. That is SALT. Strategic Arms Limitation Talk. All right. So we have that as that. So now, and we've also, all right, speaking of cultures encouraging violence, we have seen activities, certain activities, okay, certain activities like certain culture using, all right, or certain society use culture to promote violent behavior. An example of that includes the likes of wild flogging duels, two persons flogging each other, all right, wildly associated with what we refer to as the masquerade festival, all right, which is the practice of sharu, the stick fight. All right, sharu, the stick fight. Okay, so we have that as that example, as we have said something about the stick fight. All right, we also have among the Fulani the and keenly contested wrestling duels. All right, that are as dambe. All right, we have wrestling duels. We also have the ijakadi. All right, and eke in the Yoruba society. All right, and we have that as that. So now we have that as that. So let's take a step further. Now that we understand what it means by how violence came up or how violence usually erupts, from what we have seen now, according to all these things, that violence comes from the mind. All right. So philosophers, all right, statements, approaches, theories has proven that in as much as violence comes from the mind, then the way to solve, all right, the way to put an end to violence, the way forward should also come from the mind. All right. It says here that in the mind of men that the defense of peace must be constructed. All right. The defense for peace must be constructed from the minds of men, in as much as violence also erupts from the minds of men. So now let's take a step further. Okay, now, so in as much as in 1989, the final declaration of the International Congress on Peace in the Minds of Men, which held in Yamoussoukro, all right, speaking of the way forward on how peace can be achieved and violence can be minimized. We have the likes of the Declaration of International Congress on Peace in the Minds of Men. That happened in 1989. Okay, the International Congress on Peace, International Congress on Peace in the Mind of Men. International Congress in 1989. All right, the International Congress of Peace in the Mind of Men. All right, which was held in Yamoussoukro. All right, held in what we refer to as, okay, we have that as Yamos, all right, Yamos, so that is S-O-E, so Sokro. Okay, so we have that as that. And moving forward, we have seen certain improvements by other countries as well. So we are going to call it wrap here for today. Okay, so I think with a few more classes, we should be calling it a wrap with the course entirely. So we're going to be taking it up from culture of peace in Africa from our next class. And I'm certain that with the next class we are going to take, we are going to call it wrap with this course. And by next week, we should be looking at a new course entirely. Thank you very much, everyone. I believe you've been able to get something into this class. Let's do all to keep our notes up and submit them to the appropriate quarters. Do have a wonderful evening and bye for now.